All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Kate White. This is Cliff White. We are Strong Machine Adventure Racing. And we're so excited to be seeing you on Saturday for our fourth edition of the Wildlands Adventure Challenge. And we are going to be giving you a bunch of details about just what to expect for race day. Everybody who's coming in is you're kind of automatically muted. So if you have questions as we're going along, you can put them in the chat box, and we'll make sure to address any questions that come up in the chat. And let's see, we will provide a lot of information tonight, but we will not be divulging any of the details of the course itself in terms of where you're going to be going or how long you'll be doing different disciplines or things like that. So if you have questions like that, you'll have to wait for Saturday morning when you get your maps. So because of our kind of sketchy internet, I think we are going to mute our video just so that our audio comes through clearly. But remember, as we're going along, if you have questions, just feel free to put those into the chat. And all right, so Cliff will start us off with some information here.
Yes, the first thing I want to do is, can someone just chat and say they hear us okay?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're not wasting everyone's time here without being able
We
to
can hear
us.
you. You're good.
Awesome.
Perfect. That's the important part, is you can hear us. Apologies for being out in the middle of nowhere and not having good internet here, but that is the beauty of this course and the area we're going to be in, which is really unique, mountainy, with views of the ocean and deep forest feel to it. It's really a property unlike anywhere else I've been in Maine, and I love it so much. We've gotten to know it really well over the last 4 years, and we're excited to show it off to all of you guys who have not seen it yet. And for those of you who have, you'll see new parts of it. So without divulging too much information, it's we're going to see some areas you haven't been to yet. So I just wanted to run you through the rules for people who have adventure raced before. This should be a lot of mostly review, but still good to keep your ears alert in case, each race director does things a little differently. So I'm just going to go through these really quickly. So the point of an adventure race is to collect as many points as you can in the time you have allotted. So it's either 3 or 8 hours. You do not want to be late. Being late, you get penalized. So really look at that time limit as a maximum, and that time will go faster than you expect. So we have checkpoints out in the woods, and we're gonna Kate's gonna demonstrate what a checkpoint looks like. This is a nice orange and white flag. They use these in orienteering, and we also use them in adventure racing. You're going to have a punch, looks like a tweezer, and we're going to give you a passport, and you're going to punch each checkpoint you get to with the unique PIN code that it's got on your passport, and that's going to prove that you've been there. So this is what you're looking for. They show up really nicely in the woods, especially the foliage is not full on yet, but you will get a nice preview of what's to come. But in previous races, when we've done them in October, they've been harder to see with all the orange around. They're nice and easy to see. We've been, you won't have any trouble seeing them. And you're trying to get as many of those as you can in the time allotted. So that's the name of the game. All right, stop our video again. Other rules. Checkpoints can only be obtained by the specified mode of travel that's in your race booklet, which you will get upon checking in the morning. So checkpoints in our races can be obtained in any order within each stage. But once you've moved past a stage, you cannot go and get those checkpoints. So you need to get everything you can in a stage and then move on, but you can't go back. I hope that makes sense. We'll take questions at the end. So if things are still confusing, just hold on until we have gone through
We
this
can
all.
put it in the chat and we can kind of,
Right.
yeah.
So 3-hour racers, we're actually,
Yeah, so the one thing that's for 8-hour racers, one thing that we're doing this year for the 3-hour racers is you'll see a whole list of checkpoints that you can get either by foot or by boat. And probably you'll want to do all of the foot ones and then all of the boat ones or vice versa. But if you want to go back and forth between them, like say you want to get some foot points and then go for a paddle and then come back onto foot, that's fine to do. So you can do those in any order. There's no kind of ordering of stages like Cliff was mentioning, but for the 8-hour race, that is important.
yes. So sorry for that confusion. I didn't realize you were giving away that much information, Kate.
I know.
Being very generous.
I am being generous.
All right. So teams always need to stay together within 100 feet and visual contact. The whole team must go to each CP within reason or get close enough so that you're in visual contact. This is a key thing about adventure racing. You don't split up. You race as a team. There's a thing called sending rabbits to checkpoints where you send your fastest teammate who's feeling the best, sprinting out to the checkpoint. We don't want that. We want you to stay in visual contact of each other. So the thing that I'm sorry, and we want teams to check in and out of every transition area or TA and confirm with a volunteer before you leave. So we just want to mark down your times, and that gives us a little backup for safety to know where you are on the course. We want you to get back by the cutoff time. This is important for several reasons. One, you will lose points if you're not back by the cutoff time. Two, the food's going to be hot and the beer's going to be cold. So that's ideal for you. And three, it's a safety measure as well. We don't want people out later than they're supposed to be, and it turns into a where are they? Should we go find them type situation. So that's why we put a penalty of 1 CP for being late and 1 additional CP for every 5 minutes you're late on you to really incentivize you getting back on time.
So the way that we score the event is that the team that collects the most checkpoints or CPs wins the event. And then if there's any ties in checkpoints, then it goes to time. So the team that gets in soonest would rank higher than teams that get in later. Let's see, just read your instructions really carefully when you get them on the morning of the race. You'll see that for the most part, checkpoints are all optional. But there are in the 8-hour race sometimes where we have a mandatory minimum, meaning that you have to get a certain minimum number of checkpoints on a stage. So just really be careful to read the race rules and the course instructions when you receive them on Saturday.
All right, GPS is not allowed. For the few of you that have Garmin watches with adventure racing mode enabled, we can talk about that at check-in. But typically, or in general, we're not allowing GPS. If you want to track yourself, if you put your device away and lock it down somewhere in your backpack where it's not reachable during the race, we're okay with that. But if anyone sees you out on course, including any volunteers or any of us that we may see you with GPS out, you will be disqualified. So no phones for navigation, no smartwatches. Do not use those. It's a map and compass navigation event, and using your brains is a big part of the fun of adventure racing. So pretty strict on that. Littering, strictly forbidden. Verboten, leave no trace. We want to keep this place as special and beautiful as it is, and littering is just not cool. Everyone knows that. So we've got some private property that we're going to be going through. We want you to be very respectful of that. If you see a private property sign and you're on a trail marked on your race map, that is okay. You can assume you have permission to be there, but just be really respectful of passing through private property. Do not bike on hiking trails. you will get a map that shows what is a hiking trail and what is a biking trail. For people who've done this race before, you are familiar with what that general map looks like. Biking trails are marked in brown. Hiking trails are marked in green. You can bring your bike on the hiking trail, but you must walk it. You cannot bike on hiking trails. Withdrawing from the race. If you need to quit or DNF or get out of the race, you must let a race director know or get to a TA and let a volunteer know, and they'll call us. We need to know if you're getting out of the race. We can, chances are we can get you out of areas if you can get to a road. It shouldn't be too hard. You'll never be too far out lost in the woods, but yeah, generally head downhill from wherever you are and you'll find a road. But if you're going to leave the race without getting to the finish, you must let us know. Call us on your cell phone. That's mandatory gear. There's good service throughout the whole area, and speak to us and let us know.
I'll talk a little bit about our COVID protocol. So we have designed the course and registration and everything this year to be, of course, all outdoors, and registration will be outdoors. The post-race party will be outdoors. However, we are asking everybody, regardless of vaccination status, to bring a mask to the event and to wear it whenever you're in a crowded area. So wherever you're in a spot, even if it's outdoors where you can't socially distance. This is also just a request that's been made by the host. So the Craig Brook Fish Hatchery and the Great Pond Mountain Wildlands are hosting us for this event, and they've also made that request. So what that means is when you are coming to registration, for example, or if you're at the start line, we'll all be masked up. If you're at a transition area or the finish line, and there's a lot of people around, please do put a mask on. This is important, obviously, for safety. And so if there's anybody who, we'll remind you if you've forgotten, that's okay. But please try to be on it. And if people are kind of repeat offenders, then there could be penalties or disqualifications. So keep that in mind.
But we don't want to do that.
No, we don't want to do that. A couple of notes about just the morning of the race. So for the 8-hour teams, you are going to be able to start registering at 6:30 on Saturday morning, and the race start is at 8 o'clock. The registration is going to be at the front of the Fish Hatchery building, right on Fish Hatchery Road. So one of our hosts is the Craig Brook Fish Hatchery. The table will be right in front of their building. For 3-hour racers, we will be opening registration at 10, and then your start is at 11. We do really recommend coming as soon as possible to that registration table. And again, you just need to send one person from your team. When you register, you will receive your maps and the course instructions, and we want you to have as much time as you might need to, kind of map out your route and plan your strategy for the event. Also, just want to remind everybody to look at the mandatory gear list on our website and make sure that you have everything that's on there. Also, there is no potable water right at the start area, so you're going to want to bring water with you to fill up your water bladders or your water bottles. But we will make sure that there are jugs of water to refill any bottles or bladders at the transition areas. You'll also be staging your bikes fairly near to the start area. And so basically just get there with plenty of time to kind of move all your gear around and look over the maps and things like that. Maybe you've noticed, but the forecast is for a pretty rainy weekend, unfortunately. But that just kind of ups the adventure factor a little bit here. So we will be on rain or shine, and it looks as though there won't be thunder or lightning, which is good news for the paddle, but it does look like it's going to be rather wet. So definitely bring your rain gear, bring anything that you think might keep you comfortable for a rainy day out in the woods. And hopefully if we all come dressed with tons of rain gear, maybe it won't rain as much as it's supposed to.
Also recommend bringing a dry pair of clothes to change into for after the race, because you'll be soaked probably. So
it is supposed to be fairly warm. I think it's supposed to be like 70 or so, at least last I looked. But still, if you're wet, then that can cool you down quite a bit.
Towel and dry pair set of clothes.
Yes. Let's see, a note about boats and the paddle sections. So we have kayaks, lake kayaks this year for the paddles.
They're like canoe yaks.
Yeah,
they're Old Town loons.
Yeah,
you can look that up if you want.
Yeah, they're open cockpits, so you can, but they're sit inside the boat. So in terms of what you can expect for that, if you are a solo racer, you'll get a solo kayak. If you're a 2-person team, you'll get 1 tandem kayak. 3-person teams will get 1 tandem and 1 single kayak. And then 4-person teams will get 1 tandem and 2 single kayaks. The exception there is for our 3-hour racers. We know that some of you guys are coming with some kids who will be paddling along with you. And as long as we have the boats kind of as we expect them to be, you should be able to take out 2 tandems if you're a 4-person team. Or if you want to squeeze yourselves into a smaller kind of boat configuration, you're welcome to do that. So just chat with the waterfront staff and they'll help you out there. We will be providing PFDs and paddles for everybody, kayak paddles. If you wish to bring any of your own paddle gear, you are going to need to carry it during the race. Not for the whole race, you'll need to carry it for probably a handful of miles though. So just keep that in mind if you decide you want to bring your own gear. But of course, we'll be providing life jackets and kayaks for all racers. I'll make a couple last general safety notes or kind of tips in general, I guess. So bring enough food and water for a full 3 or 8 hours. Like I mentioned, there's water to refill yourselves at the transition areas. For 8-hour racers, there's also water out on the course, and you're required to bring some way to purify water. So if you want to, take water from a stream or something, there's plenty of that. There'll be even more after the rain that's forecasted for the race. Important to wear helmets on your bikes and have your flashing lights on, and always wear your PFD while you're paddling. And also just remember to have your cell phone accessible in some way while you're paddling. So that might mean putting it in like a dry bag. Cell phones are mandatory gear. We ask you to keep them in the off mode throughout the race. And then if you're having some kind of an emergency, then you'd be able to power it on. Get off the water if you see lightning. Hopefully that won't be the case for the weekend, but of course, I don't want to jinx it. So we'll say get off the water if you see lightning. Mandatory gear has to be with you at all times. So for 8-hour racers, this includes, we have a headlamp on the gear list. And even though it's a daylight race, that's in case of your team for some reason being lost or not able to get back on time. So making sure you have a headlamp and a rain jacket, even if for some reason it's clear that day. So make sure you have all your mandatory gear with you. And then in the event of any problem on course, you can call us. Our numbers are on the race rules and the course instructions that you'll receive in the morning. And sometimes if a call doesn't go through, text usually does. So just keep that in mind. And Cliff, do you want to talk a little bit about general strategy?
Sure. So I just wanted to go way to the basics and just let you know that when you check in, you'll get your maps and a course booklet or course instructions, which will have all the clues for the checkpoints and any other vital information you need about stages and routes. Anything you need to know to get through the course will be in there. So if this seems really frustratingly vague, that's kind of the point. It's kind of frustrating when you're starting out to not know really what you're doing, but it's really fun to show up and have a surprising adventure planned for you. So I know your pain if you're feeling right now a lot of anxiety about what's to come, and I can tell you that's part of the fun. So just have to deal with it for another 48 hours, and then you'll All your anxiety will be replaced by anxiety about how many checkpoints you can get once you get the maps in your hands. You will see that for most teams, this course is going to be big and probably not, won't be able to get all the checkpoints. It won't be clearable for most teams. So this is where strategy really comes into play, and it's one of my favorite parts of adventure racing. You can look at the map and maybe make a plan for what your priorities are going to be, what checkpoints you think you can get, and if it comes down to boating, or if you're in the 8-hour race, biking or hiking, you can choose what your team strengths are or what you want to do more of, and maybe prioritize that. So it really depends if you're going to maximize your score, or if you want to really do a lot of mountain biking. We're giving you a lot of options out there. Probably only the top few teams have a chance of clearing this course. So for the rest of you, start making strategic decisions once you start looking at the map. And make plan Bs in case plan A goes awry, as it tends to in adventure racing. On the paddle, you must be aware that paddling for many teams is a slower mode of travel than foot and certainly bike. So factor that in. You're not going to be moving as fast on the water as you will be on land. For the trek, there are sections with some points that are on trail, especially for the 3-hour race, but also several in the 8-hour race. And that's to give you some confidence with the maps and to give you something a little more simple to shoot for. We want this to be a beginner and intermediate friendly race. So there will be those options. There are going to be some off-trail points in both races as well. Those are more challenging, but they are gettable. There's a lot of navigational clues that you'll have to be able to find those. So if you want to take a chance, it's a fun time to go for it. But if you feel like staying on trails, you'll certainly have a lot of adventure on trails as well. So just be careful when you're going off trail. That's when you can get lost and where you can lose a lot of time. But it's also, going to be necessary for you to go off trail if you want to clear the course. So I'll leave that up to you from here on out. On the bike, this is for the 8-hour race only. 3-hour race is just boat and foot. But on the bike for the 8 hours, you will be on all sorts of different surfaces. So teams who want to do more of the course can be prepared for single track, double track, and rough dirt roads. However, there are options to minimize or ride around and even stay on pavement and gravel, but you will be missing a lot of checkpoints. So if you've got bike that you don't want to take off trail, that's okay. You could still have a great adventure. You just probably won't be clearing the course. Or you can take that bike and try your luck on some of these areas. We will not be prohibiting you from trying it, but
there's some pretty rough terrain that, which is one of the less talked about disciplines in adventure racing is hike a bike. So even if you bring your mountain bike, you might find yourself hiking from time to time.
Yes, trails. On the subject of trails, there are all sorts of different varieties. So you're going to get some really well-maintained trails, even like roadway width, some double track, and some less maintained trails. We do our best to map out all the trails on the map, especially on the expected route choices we expect you to take. However, you may encounter unmapped trails, and they're usually of the unmaintained variety. So if you see a sketchy trail going to the woods and it's not on your map, chances are we were like, we followed it and it petered out, or
there's a lot of like old logging routes. So, those old logging trails in particular are not maintained and therefore not mapped.
This whole area was logged, and some of it still gets logged here and there, especially on the private property. So there are a lot of like logging road-ish things through there. So don't be surprised if you see them and they're not on the map.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think just post-race.
Post race, my favorite part. You've completed your big adventure and you're ready for a beer and some vegetarian hot chili.
Or a soda.
Or a soda or purified water. But in my case, a beer. And we will have beer provided by Fogtown Brewing. Sorry, a great sponsor. They've given us beer from the beginning, and it is a really great brewery.
Up in Ellsworth.
If you are in the Ellsworth area, definitely check them out. They've usually got a wood-fired pizza oven going. It's a great place to hang out after the race. If you haven't gotten enough beer at our race, but we'll have chili as well. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get burritos like last year due to labor shortages, which everyone seems to be struggling with, but we were able to get some good chili. It's vegetarian. If you have any dietary restrictions, I know we've already asked about them, but if you haven't gotten them in yet, email us tonight and I'm going to call the guy tomorrow and see if he can do anything special for you.
The chili is vegan. So basically if you have some kind of like a difficulty with beans or any particular vegetables, let us know.
Yeah. And yeah, we're going to kind of do social distancing at the post-race party. It's going to be outside and kind of apparently messy weather. So we're going to try and speed things along as best as possible. And our plan is to host an award ceremony after the race. That's another reason to finish on time so we can get this thing done. And we've got prizes and we've got an amazing raffle planned. Every single participant is going to get a prize. So that's pretty awesome. This year, our sponsors really came through. So we've got a lot of cool stuff, including a Hyperlight pack to give away, fully free Hyperlight pack, as well as Hyperlight gift certificates, 2 free Out There packs, and those are the premier packs for adventure racing. So some really sweet prizes and a bunch of other really cool stuff.
So you might want to, if anybody has, like, if you have your own little, I don't know, tarp or shelter kind of canopy thing, you might want to bring that. We'll have a couple, but probably definitely not enough for everybody. So we'll try to move that along.
At the very least, umbrellas.
Yes, that's right. But I think at this point, that's all the stuff we wanted to go over. So I see that Chris mentioned in the chat, I totally forgot, we had actually moved the headlamp for the 8-hour race from mandatory to recommended gear. So definitely look over the mandatory gear list though and make sure you have everything that is on there. Does anybody have any other questions? You can throw them into the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, you can do that too. Let's see, is it okay to keep a phone in airplane mode to take pictures during the race? We actually, unfortunately, we request people not to use their phones for photos during the race, just because we really like to, mostly other teams don't really know what you're doing. Like, is it for a picture or is it, because you're looking at your Google Maps or something? Though your Google Maps probably won't help you all that much for this race. So usually in this case, we request people to just, if you have a backup, like some other kind of camera, to bring that. In the 8-hour race, we'll be carrying a paddle just for one section or multiple. Yes, so if you decide to bring your own paddle for the 8-hour race, you would be carrying it just for, hard to say kind of how many sections. It's essentially one section. It's not for all that long, but it is certainly for, like I said, multiple miles. But you're welcome to do that if you'd like to.
Any other questions? Feel free to chat it out.
And I should say too that on the morning of the race, after you get your maps, we will have a brief race brief, or I should say really Q&A and some like last minute details that we'll share, or kind of rules and things we'll go over. So there will be an opportunity to ask questions after you see the maps. But any other questions about preparing for the race? Yeah.
Yeah, I had one thing to say.
So you have a question?
I have a question for myself. Last year, because of COVID, we did a staggered start with 3 teams per minute. This year, we're going to do a mass start. So
We'll just have everybody wear masks at the start.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you can take your masks off once you get a sufficient distance from everyone. Yeah, everyone's going to start at the same time. So that'll make it a lot easier to tell what time you need to get back by.
Yeah, exactly.
So for the 3-hour race, which starts at 11, it's 2 p.m. For the 8-hour race, which starts at 8 a.m., it's 4 p.m. Did I do the math right?
You did.
Great. It's not my strong suit.
Nailed it. Let's see. Any other questions?
Wow, we are getting better at this.
I know we've been asked so many questions. We kind of anticipate them. We'll throw a video on for a second.
Maybe we're just getting more intimidating.
Yeah, that's it. That's probably it. Well then, why don't we wrap it up? We are very scary, yes. Thanks, Chris. We really can't wait to see everybody on Saturday. Thank you all for coming this evening. And if you do find yourself with questions before the race start, you can always email us. So strongmachinear@gmail.com. So we'll be checking our email right up until the morning there. So we will see everybody on Saturday.
And if you missed any of this, or we were skipping because you guys all look like weird marionettes, yeah. We will be posting this recording on YouTube and sending the link out on Facebook. And
very slowly as it uploads, but
yeah. Good scary faces.
Yeah, we did see those.
Liked it.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. See you on Saturday.
Can't wait.